Meh. Hello, friend. You're coming to join me, yes, today? Meh. I think you're going to get tangled up that way. Oh, you're not tied. Okay, come. So, if I'm a bit boring today, there's plenty of rural action going on behind me. Hey, come on. Oh, sneezing goat. There's a first. Right. Namaste. Good afternoon. As you can see, rural India is all going on around me. Cows and goats. But nevertheless, I thought outside still very nice to go through some of the comments and questions and talk about those. Excuse me, and get my breath back after chasing goats off. Okay. I'm pretty sure you can hear me okay, even if the surrounding chatter is quite loud to me. These microphones are quite good. I haven't cut off the outside, the background noises, because I think it's rather interesting. See, but when I go into busy towns and things, I can do that, I think. Let me just double check this. Okay, I think we're on normal. I only wish there was some way I could know that I've pressed start on the camera part of it, because that I'm never sure of until I've finished. But never mind, we crack on anyway. Okay, begin with this. This is an interesting one. When you are a monk, you can roam the earth freely. Are you allowed to have a personal bank account? How do you manage to pay for tickets? Oh wow, that's 3 questions in one short and concise paragraph. That's very good. And good questions. If you don't mind, I'm going to read my written answer, because this is one I've already replied to directly, and I'm hoping that my written answer is a little while ago, so I can't remember, is as concise as the question, because otherwise I could be just answering this one set of 3 questions for the next 40 minutes. And I should check the time, yes, 13:38, try and remember that, 20 to 2. Okay. So I said, monks, thank you for your question. It is a good question. Thank you for your question. Monks are no more free to roam than lay people. I think I meant to say no more free to roam the earth than lay people. Monks shouldn't have bank accounts except under stewardship of a lay person. Lay people who invite you may pay for your tickets, or your steward will from available funds. Be happy and stay well. So what I said there was, and now I'm going to waffle. Monks are no more free to roam this earth, this beautiful planet of ours, than lay people. In fact, we have considerably more restrictions. We are tied to a sangha, an organised body of more senior monks than ourselves, whom we are, responsible to. They support us, and we support them. They look after us, and we look after them. But it is not a hierarchy. It does work in order of seniority, and our elders more or less they tell us what to do, where to go, and how to do it. up to a point. After 5 years of being a monk, you're more or less free to roam, but of course you're restricted in that you, as you go on to say in a minute in your question, subscriber, we don't have money, we don't have access to funds, we don't have that freedom that lay people do whom are working or retired. I'm technically retired and can, as a layperson, just roam around more freely than I can as I am a monk. Because as a monk, I have to observe these 227 precepts of ours, our Bhikkhu training rules, which determine when I can eat, what I can eat, how I eat, with whom I eat, where I sleep, where I stay, all of these things. So it does seem romantic, this idea, when you see the roaming sadhu, the samana, in these lovely pictures of India, that this is the case. And yes, indeed, in this country, in India, that is more possible than anywhere else, for anyone to just get up and roam off. But you do not have to be a monk to do that. Anyone can do that, as long as you're prepared to go hungry. Because in the answer to your next question, are monks allowed to have a bank account? They shouldn't have a bank account because we're not allowed to handle money. And by having a bank account, we are technically dealing with, handling, have control over money. Now, this, in terms of modern day society, to some extent is impractical because certain government rules, restrictions and requirements are that you have maybe taxes, you may have money owing to you even from governments as you get older in the form of pensions, or you may be responsible for paying money back to governments, or this and that when you travel to different countries. There are certain financial duties upon us as monks that ordinary people or lay people have also, that we cannot just ignore. So, in order to get around that, we would usually keep just one bank account open, one simple account, which we put responsibility of in the hands of what we call in the West a steward, or you could say in the technical term a trustee, but basically someone who is responsible, a friend, a family member, or someone in fact you could pay, like a solicitor, something like that, who has the equivalent of a living power of attorney, so he has the right to sign away anything and use the funds as is appropriate in your interests without your agreement. Therefore you relinquish control. You're still renouncing that money in the bank account and that access to the account. Of course, it always remains the case whilst you're alive, you still do have access, but as we do as monks with all the other things we renounce, like listening to music, eating afternoon, wearing makeup and fancy clothes, we still have access to those too. But out of choice, we choose not to do that. And out of choice, I choose not to use my what is required, a bank account that I have to keep, and rely that a trustee, when things are needed to be paid for, can do that on my behalf. So when I travel, as I will be doing in the not too far distant future, and require an air ticket, that is one option. You can, if there are available funds, say to the steward, look, I need a ticket to go to so-and-so, I've been invited here, and he will make those necessary arrangements. Also in an emergency, like having health insurance, if you have available funds, that can be there to cover, if you're dead, repatriation, or repatriation if you need urgent medical assistance back in your own country, or if you're forcibly told to get out of the country, as I have been in India now twice, been told I have to go without very much notice, and I've had to leave more or less straight away. And on these occasions you need to get your steward in charge of your bank account to buy you a ticket rather quickly, and also then pay for the necessary visa fees and what have you, in order that you can come back, if they'll allow you to. And then finally, how do you manage to pay for tickets? Well, like that, but also if you're invited somewhere and transport's involved, then usually whomever's inviting you will organise the transport and pay for that on your behalf for you. So that's a good question. I hope I've answered it clearly enough. Oh, this is a longer one. Okay, I'll read the question in full, but I won't give as long an answer as the question this time. I don't think it'll be the other way around. I'm 65 years old, living in Malaysia with my 85 years old mum. After my mum, I am planning to lead a spiritual life as you and live in a monastery. I'm looking for English-speaking monastery environment anywhere, but it has to be clean and comfortable. I've saved so much, such and such amount of money to give away to the monastery who is willing to accept me. I'm searching through Google for such monasteries, but not sure where and how about doing it. Please help. Thank you. Okay, well, Anumodana for your good intentions. I'm not sure either, and I think maybe you might have a little bit. Firstly, I don't live in a monastery. I stay in a monastery from time to time, or a vihara like this for this particular 3 months rains retreat at this time of year. I wander around pretty much nomadically from place to place, country to country, so I have no fixed abode. A monk's life is simple and unfussy. We have to be content with very little in the way of any comforts and food. I mean, it's part of our Vinaya, our training rules, that we don't even sleep on beds or have comfortable chairs. So what understanding you might have, say, from, I don't know where you've got this idea that it's a comfortable life. I think most monasteries generally are clean, but whether they're clean to the standards of modern day, let's say even the equivalent of nursing homes and such like in the West. You're in Malaysia. I don't know much about Malaysia. I'm not sure. They're just practical places. I mean, the cleanliness is to the standard of the floor is swept. You know, we're not looking at polished marble floors and comfortable seating arrangements anywhere. You might find that in places, but not the sort of monasteries I stay in. I'm more a forest monk. But it's important, cleanliness, obviously. It's part of our Vinaya also. I mean, you have money saved, that's irrelevant, as like we've just talked about. You would have to put that in the hands of someone else. If you want to give it to a monastery, it's fine, but it doesn't have to be the monastery you're going to stay in. As I say, it's irrelevant. You're not buying a position in a monastery. English speaking, this is rare. In an English speaking country, or a Western monastery elsewhere, yes, maybe, but they're generally orientated towards the younger generation of training monks, English speaking for that purpose, for training. But if you're wanting the choice of monasteries throughout the world, you have to forget speaking. I've spent 7 months just recently in Thailand not speaking at all because nobody spoke English. Now that is what I am used to and what I prefer. We have a certain degree of training that is such that if you're trained in that style of that tradition of monastic life, whichever monastery you go, within that tradition, everything behaves and runs in the same fashion, same way. So you don't need to communicate. You know how to wash your bowl, where to wash your bowl, when to wash your bowl, how to sit, where to sit, when to sit, when to wake up, when to go to sleep, when to sweep, when not to sweep. You know this. So it takes a long time to learn that. It took me 5 years and then another 2-3 years before I could ordain and become a monk. And now 3 years as a monk, I'm still not really that free. I'm still responsible to my teachers here in India and also now in Thailand, and flip between the two countries. But it's not a retirement thing, becoming a monk. That is a stage in life in the Hindu tradition in India, whereby you get to a certain age, you renounce everything and you go off to the caves or the forest and live as a sadhu or something like that. But that's not really what you're describing here from what you say. You want a bit of a comfortable existence, I think, which is a aspiration to want to do it in the Buddhist style, but you're better off just doing that at home. I think the feeling you have is you'll be lonely after your mother dies. You're going to be more lonely in a monastery than on your own at home, where you can pick and choose your friends. You are going to have your friends chosen for you living in a monastery, and there may not be anyone chosen for you. You may be alone in solitude practicing just meditation. That's all. The other thing, I'm just checking what I said, the other thing, in my own country there's a cut-off limit. It used to be at 50 when I was inquiring about it, and I was only in my 40s, so that was okay. But by the time I got around to making the decision, I was approaching 50. I think they've put that, I heard a rumour, they've put that age up a little now to 55, but still, you're beyond that, you're age 65, even though your health may be very good, and I sincerely hope your health is good. Otherwise, really, you shouldn't consider this life unless you're pretty healthy. The diet, the 8 precepts, could put you off in that respect. You cannot eat after noon. There's no real exception to this, except ill health, but that's after you've been a monk and you suffer ill health. You can't ordain on the basis that I'm not going to keep all this rule, that rule, and the other rule because of ill health, because this is outside of the initial questions you're asked at ordination as to whether you are fit and to become a monk. It's a tough number, a tough gig, a difficult job. Monk life is not an easy way out. I can assure anyone thinking of retiring as a monk. It's beginning. I'm retired as a layperson, but certainly not as a monk. It's the beginning of my work. It really is. It's not easy. So I hope that's clear. I wish you all the best, and your mother all the best with what future she has remaining and your own future. I would sincerely suggest you continue with your search on Google. There may be, and there are in this day and age, so many different kinds of monasteries, meditation centres, organisations and things that are very different to my own tradition of monastic life, which is very basic and old school, orthodox, if you like, in accordance with the teachings of the Buddha, very close to those times 2,600 years ago, that today might seem like very austere practices and would not necessarily suit all people. But there are other options out there. You just keep looking. Or just consider setting yourself up in a place at home, simply living a monastic life, keeping the 8 or 10 or as many precepts as you are comfortable with, and practicing sila, keeping moral virtue, practicing meditation, and developing wholesome mind states, reducing unwholesome mind states. And this way you stand just as much chance of reaching arahantship, becoming enlightened, attaining to nibbana, as a monk, because you'll be living a monk's life. I lived a monk's life for some years before I ordained and became a monk officially, because I wasn't ready to take that final commitment and ordain, for external and internal, my own excuses and reasons. So this is the other option that's open to you, and the far more flexible and probably suitable and easy option for you. Okay, thank you for your question. Namaste. Chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. There we are. As per the Kali Shantarana Upanishad. This is the mantra for the current age of Kali/Kali Yuga. Well, for me, there's only the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and this is all I chant in terms of chanting homage to, in reflection of the Buddha's teachings. It is the only chanting I do. If I was to chant any repetitive mantra, it would be something just like Iti Piso, which is repeating the 9 qualities of the Buddha. This, what you're talking about, is of the Hindu religion or something closely associated with it, and not my cup of tea, I'm afraid. But it's very nice. I see people performing japa, which is where you have similarly the 108 beads that we have on a Buddhist mala. And then I was given some hot chai earlier, which I don't really like, even chai, because it's got milk in it, and I'm not keen on milk, but it was offered to me this morning on Pindapart, and I burnt they make this stuff so hot, I burnt the inside of my lip, so it feels like I've been to the dentist or something, or bitten it, you know, hence I'm pulling funny faces. Where was I going with this? I think I dealt with that, hadn't I? Oh yes, japa. So it's very good, actually. They chant this Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, la la la, like this. And they do it so many times a day. It's something like 336 or some huge number of cycles. And it's quite a long chant when you do it properly in full, because it's one of these triplicate repeats and it goes backwards and forwards. And they have this mala in a little bag. I didn't know the Krishna devotees walk around with this little bag around places here in India, and possibly in London and the West, doing this thing in their bag. And I always wondered what was going on in this bag, but there's these balls on this string, a mala, and they're counting off the numbers of chants through the day. Now actually this is a very good exercise for mindfulness, because it's keeping the mind on one meditation object. It's a way of continuously meditating throughout the day. I personally prefer the breath for that purpose, because it's there, it's tangible, but you don't have to be carrying it about in a little bag or looking after it in any way. But of course it is easier to go off track with the breath, whereas with this you're physically controlling the movement of the beads, your thumb, your finger, and the mantra, and you're really keeping the mind calmed and steady. So it's not a bad practice at all. As far as it invoking special powers and godly bestowal and benefits, I'm not sure about that, but certainly it's not an unskillful exercise. I see nothing wrong with that, and in fact many Buddhists do the same with our malas, chanting Itipiso or some other similar mantra like Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, like this. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. So I'm not disagreeing with what you're suggesting. I'm thinking just the context is a little bit out of place with what I'm normally talking about. Right, can Buddhist monks let a stray cat adopt them? What, the stray cat adopt me, or me adopt the stray cat? I've got some stray termites that are trying to adopt me or eat me at the moment, but this is very common here. I'm pretty sure this place was built on termite mounds, because when you do that, they don't care. They're just going to come back up through the building, in the building. My kuti is just, I'm brushing the thing they make carefully, sweeping it out before it gets big, as they grow. But they grow literally, you don't see them growing, but overnight they can grow this long up the wall, and I'm having to brush them out, otherwise my kuti will just fill with termite mound. But gradually, not that gradually, it's a very quick process, so I'm sweeping this out continually. Now I can only imagine from seeing the big mounds in ant hills or termite mounds in the graveyard over there, the banyan tree graveyard, that this is a area very, ripe for termites. So I've had to take it's a piece of plastic furniture that was stored in my room, which was also covered in termite mounds, but rather than brushing those off, I took the piece of furniture and I put it outside to let them escape that way. So, yes, termites. So stray cats, well, I assume you mean, can I look after a stray cat? Any living beings, if something stray comes along, I would give it some food, and I cannot adopt and keep any animals because we're not to keep pets for a couple of reasons. That reason, it's a kind of enslavement, it's entrapment, it's keeping something, it's not letting. But if there's like a dog's wandering along here, or a goat's behind me there, or one like Tom Tom, little dog who was here, is there, I will look after it, feed it, be kind to it, and reciprocally it might adopt me also, as would be a cat. So any creature, it doesn't matter the nature of the creature. Of course, cats do have a tendency to go out killing, it is in their nature, but this is their own karma. We can only dissuade them or discourage them from that activity by feeding them well with other things. However, heard recently, I didn't know this before, that I think they do have to eat meat, I'm not sure. But regardless of that, we cannot really adopt, because we cannot be responsible for them, because of course of our, being monks, our nomadic nature. I can't take it with me when I travel. So I make it very clear to any little pets that adopt me, or I adopt, like even Tom Tom, that I said to him, he didn't last very long, but I said to him right at the start, you know, fellow, my friend, we will part company at the end of this Vassa. I'll be going my way, you'll stay here, or you go your way. Just so as you know, this isn't a permanent relationship, as are no relationships permanent. Anicca, uncertainty, impermanence. We will be parted from those that are dear to us. That is inevitable. Even if we're married for our entire lives, one of those partners in the marriage will die. Even if we both die at the same time, we are parted, for that moment at least, even if we're reunited later on. But this comes as a result of forming a relationship. You will be parted. It's an inevitable end. As the inevitable end of birth is death. It is the only sure thing we have. So, yes and no, really, to your question. Okay, let me check the time, because I know that this question is a long one, 22 minutes. It's a short question, that one. So I've got two questions relating to the same subject, which is quite a long answer, so I'm going to skip those two for now. It's with regards to Anapanasati, mindfulness of the breath meditation, and I have actually spoken about that in some detail recently already. So I'll go on to the next question. Do you have any food that you detest or simply cannot eat or go into your mouth? What would you do if given this type of food? No, not that I can particularly think of. I think I would eat rather anything. There's food I'd prefer not to, but not that I have such an aversion to I couldn't even put it in my mouth, or could say I detest the flavour of. However, I think these days, given some meat and even dairy products and eggs, I would rather not put those in my mouth. If we are offered such foods, we are duty bound to accept them, but we don't have to eat them, and we can then give them away. I can offer those, give them to my adopted cat or pet or the termites, that's no problem. Give them, leave them outside. Many people offer food, leave it by trees and things for all animals. It's a thing people do in India, so you often see piles of food just in the hedgerows for no apparent reason, but it's for the animals. People are offering part of their food as dana to other beings. Maybe gods or devas, whatever their beliefs are. But no, I can't give it away if I don't want it. So that's the way out of that one. But I can't refuse it. However, there are four things: human meat, lion, snake. There's always the fourth one I can never remember, which I think is raw food or raw meat. That we're prohibited from accepting even. But it's only those four things: human, lion, snake and raw meat. We're prohibited from accepting, so we would say no to those things, and I wouldn't put those things in my mouth anyway. Anything else, if it's offered, raw grain, we can say no thank you because it's not cooked and ready to eat. Salads, however, that are raw are okay because they're ready to eat. And it all goes into my bowl. This is the conventional manner, but these days in Thailand, where you mostly get all of your nourishment from arms round, they'll just be putting rice in your bowl, and anything else is in little bags, plastic bags or containers, which go in on top or in a separate carrying device or thing, something like that. So it doesn't tend to get so mixed up these days. But in the olden days, I understand, and some places where I've been, it does get all mixed up, so you're not really sure what's there. Best thing is to do is to just mix it all up and eat it and not think about it too much. You know that they know the rules and what they can't give you and what they can. You will often get meat because Buddhists aren't by convention, aren't by being Buddhists naturally or required to be vegetarian. This is something that's been bestowed upon Buddhism more from the West. And although in the Chinese traditions they're also vegetarian and have even other restrictions as to garlic, for instance, leeks and anything of those oniony kind of aromatic, smelly foods, they're not allowed to eat. Some say that's just for social reasons, because they're monks talking to lay people and they shouldn't have smelly breath. And others say it's for a lot of the Hindu faiths say this is all something to do with sex drive and this kind of the effect it might have on you. But they aren't restricted foods in my tradition, and we can more or less eat anything. But personally, I suppose you'd call it vegan if I don't eat meat and, dairy products and eggs also. But I don't really get offered those things that often, and if I do, I just sort of put it to one side a little bit and maybe give it to something passing by. Feels like I've eaten my mouth today. See, that was chai. I get offered these cups of chai. That's all I get on this arms round here, so I can't really say no, because the man really wants to give me chai from his chai stall, so he gives me 2 cups. He used to give me 1, and then before I could run away, he'd give me another. So now he caught me running away a bit quickly, so he gives me 2 at the same time now. So I'm daft, I drink it more quickly because there's 2, and then burn my mouth. That's not being mindful. It's not being greedy either, because I don't like it, but I'm trying to get rid of it quickly because I'm not enjoying it. You see what I mean? Right, Namo Buddhaya. I can't say this word. It must be Sinhalese. Please visit to Sri Lanka, Bhante. Watch this space. That's all I'll say. Yes, I am coming to Sri Lanka. I am going to Sri Lanka in November. Shh. I haven't told anyone yet. It's our secret. Oh, that's the end of the questions. So I said 38, so that's 40. I think then, as we've got 2 questions on Anapanasati, I'll read them and try and keep my answers within this time limited. Right, I meditate, keeping my attention on the area around my nostrils, observing the inhalations and exhalations. After a while, the breath slows down and becomes so calm that I no longer feel anything around my nostrils. Am I losing my concentration? What can I do in this situation? Okay, so this is why I don't watch the breath going in and out of my nostrils. Firstly, I've never found that very easy to do. Maybe it's because I've got a big nose. You'd think that would help, wouldn't you? But it's never seemed the most appropriate place to identify where the breath... It is actually the nasal cavity. This part is where the air is entering into the body and exiting out of the body. So because of the temperature difference, it is noticeable at first. But as you quite rightly say, as the breath slows, as your body settles, the breath will calm and slow down. As the mind settles and calms, the breath, the respiration, and the cardiac rate will all start to slow down. The breath becomes more subtle. So it is harder to notice. And then you find yourself really concentrating on trying to find the breath at the tip of the nose, which isn't what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be just observing the breath. So this is why the Buddha never mentions in the suttas or the Anapanasati Sutta, mindfulness of the breath, meditation. He doesn't say watch the breath at the nostrils. He says observe the whole body of the breath. Now he doesn't mean the breath in your body or going throughout your body, because you can't see the oxygenation process in all of the bloodstream. You just feel it coming in your nose, maybe the movement of your body in and out, contracting, expanding, contracting, or tummy rising, falling. These are other points of observation, but that's not so much the breath. What he means by the whole body of the breath is you breathe in like a body of water would be a lake or a pond or a puddle, even is a body of water. A body of air is what we breathe in, an amount, a quantity of air into our bodies. That same body of air, amount, quantity of air, is exhaled from our body. Observe that in its entirety. A body of air entering, a body of air exiting. In this respect, we observe its qualities. Is this breath short, long, deep, shallow, fast, slow, warm, cool, hot, cold? All of these identifiers we can use to notice this breath, keep our minds on this breath, entering the body, exiting the body. However subtle it becomes, we can still do this, and we don't find ourselves searching for it at the tip of the nose or at the top of the lip, or trying to see if our belly's still moving or not, because it's so subtle. Because you are still breathing in, however subtle the breath becomes, you are still breathing in a body of air, a quantity of air, and exhaling a quantity of air, because otherwise you die. You can make that quantity very, very small and still notice it with mindfulness. This is the point of anapanasati meditation, mindfulness of the breath. So that's what I suggest you do in this situation. Try that alternative way. Okay. Now, I thought this question was about the same thing. I'm just reading the whole preamble. Just quickly. My question is, how can I exercise breathing and grounding, settle breathing? So you're describing. I can't read this whole question out because it's rather difficult for me to quite understand it way it's translated slightly incorrectly. But basically, this subscriber is freaking out a bit because his mind's going all crazy in all sorts of directions, and not sure I really understand the question. A lot of thoughts are arising out of the excitement of you observing the breath. Now, this isn't really the point of observing the breath. Try and bring your mindfulness back into the breath only. And when your mind does get excited and thoughts pop up and your mental activity increases because you're jumping on those thoughts and going from one thought to the next, when you do realize this, when you do notice this, then you come back to observing the breath. Not back to, you haven't gone anywhere, but bring your attention, your awareness, what you are noticing to the breath, and try and forget what you were thinking about that took you away from watching, observing the breath, as I was describing previously. Now, this is quite difficult to do, but this is the training. This is the point of sitting and doing this often, in order that the more times we do that, we come back from this monkey mind procrastination, this papancha, this discursive reoccurring thought of one subject to another, to another, to another, which are always 5 hindrance-based stimulations of thought, of either sensual desire, aversion, maybe tiredness, wishing you could just go to sleep, or you get a bit dreamy even as a result of that, restlessness and worry, thinking about the past, thinking about the future, or doubt about what you're even doing. These questions will arise and create these kinds of thoughts. So just leave it, put it down, let it go, and just enjoy breathing. Once you get to enjoy breathing in the manner I just described, just the whole body of the breath, is it long, is it short, is it slow, is it fast, is it deep, is it shallow? These questions, when you get to enjoy the breath like that, and know it as a refreshing, cooling, invigorating, energizing process, like a cool drink on a hot day, you'll find it really does help to relax not only your body but the mind also, and let the mind settle and become calm and less prone to these extra these thinking activities. So this breathing may be needed. You may need to take a grip of it, take control of it, and say, right, I'm going crazy in my mind thinking, just take some deep breaths in and out for a few moments to really get your attention there on the breath, and then settle back into it. So that's really what I can suggest to that long statement of facts, and then the following question, which I'm not that clear on. So please, rephrase it or ask again if I haven't covered what you were thinking. And I think that is me with these questions all caught up. Have I got time for this one? I think 22:15, 20 past will be. Yes, I think so. So this is one about Jesus again. We get these questions. But Jesus taught he was God, and he is the way through the way, truth and life. And no one goes to the Father except through him. So I get these Christian statements, and that's what they are, statements. And there's nothing wrong with these Christian statements, and I welcome them. Please, I'm happy if people wish to send them in. But I have to say to this one, what does that mean? What does this mean? These words don't mean anything to me. These are statements, often quoted from the Bible, but out of context. That Jesus said a lot of things, and a lot of wonderful teachings. If they weren't wonderful, marvellous, excellent teachings, he wouldn't be the most famous teacher ever in human history, the largest religion ever in human history, through more countries than any other religion, there's no disputing that. But one must take all that he said in the context of the time he was saying it, much like the Buddha. I think after a little bit of toing and froing, because the next statement is the only that's true what I said. That only through believing in Jesus Christ, the way alone, the truth, is the way to get to God the Father, the life, eternal life, not by any other religion or person. And I said, truth is not belief, because it's not. Truth is truth. You do not have to believe the truth, because it's the truth. Jesus also quoted many truths in the Bible, but taken out of context, again, little verses, little passages that get thrown and misbanded around, they either don't make sense or they are only to be believed. If you read them in the context of the whole, passage or part of the Bible that they come from, then you can see they are sometimes similes or analogies, or there's a hidden meaning behind what he's actually saying, which is much what you're saying within your description here, quite rightly, that Jesus, like in brackets you say the way. Yes, we follow Jesus because he lived a good life, and we trust in the way he lived, a moral lifestyle of generosity, much like in Buddhism we follow the Buddha. So then I think then we had another little exchange today when I said not to be believed, and you agree. This is great. We're having a nice conversation. Sometimes I don't really get into these conversations if they're a debate or argumentative. But this kind of discussion, I think, isn't unwholesome, because we seem to be really agreeing. I don't disagree with Christianity. I come from a Christian background and life and upbringing, and have a relatively good understanding of the New Testament and the Old Testament, the Bible, and I'm very appreciative of the teachings of Jesus, and a great respecter and admirer of him as a teacher, and certainly, as I just said, the most famous teacher ever in the world to have lived, a man, a human being. But then we hear this, I am the God, the one God, the only way statements. He didn't necessarily say that, because as I go on to say, he says, this question, you did reply, agreed, however, people could still deny the truth because of their ignorance and or stubbornness, but truth is Jesus died for our sins and rose to life 3 days later, so whoever believes, agrees, accepts, follows him, still, it says something else, still follows him, still have eternal life. Whoever, yes. So then this fellow turns us around again to this belief in that particular part of the life of Jesus story, the resurrection. Now, one thing where I came to have to part ways with my church going, my Christianity, was something called the apostolic creed that you have to say in every church service as a Christian. And that is that you will believe in one God and this one only God. That's it. And not even have any doubt in that. You have to. And you have to believe in the resurrection of Christ. That he was killed and died on the cross and then came back to life again. But he didn't come, he did walk about for a bit, but then he went back to heaven, to his Father, God. Now I have to believe both those things. I can't just take them as any fact. There's many facts in the Bible which are good enough to make you a good Christian, and you can still go to heaven. Most of the commandments are to do no harm, like the precepts in Buddhism. Most of the teachings in the Bible are based on some element of truth, albeit maybe elaborated a little bit. But in what I say to that is that where Jesus said, believe in me, also, the Buddha said, believe in, he didn't say believe me, what I'm saying, but take what I'm teaching, try it for yourselves, and experience it for yourselves. In much the same way, so did Jesus. But in both cases, there are aspects in the Buddhist scriptures and in the Bible that require some element of belief, but they're not compulsory. So I don't think if you're a practicing Buddhist, keeping the 5 precepts, Jesus or St. Peter at the gates of heaven is going to say, no, you cannot come in, because you did not believe that I came back to life after crucifixion, or you didn't believe I even died at crucifixion. In fact, you believe that I went to India and became a Buddhist monk. He's not going to say, refuse you entry into heaven because of that. If you've gone around murdering people on the basis of your belief in Jesus dying for our sins, and you use that as an excuse to murder people, then he's not going to let you into heaven. So I think what we're saying here is the belief aspect is optional extras. The devotional aspect in Buddhism is an optional extra. The core underlying tendency to both these religions, Buddhism and Christianity, is to be kind to everybody and to each other, and us continue these kind exchanges, these okay, this is no problem. Occasionally I'll get then another little verse quoted out of context back that really starts the question again, well, what does this mean? Because it doesn't mean anything. When I say when the Buddha said there's suffering, what can you say to that? You can't say there's not, can you? That's just the truth. He says there's a cause of suffering. Well, yes, there has to be, I suppose, if there's suffering. There's an end of suffering. Now you could be a little, well, I'm not sure about there is an end of suffering. But then he says there's this path leading to the end of suffering. And then you open your mind of inquiry to that subject. What is this path leading to the end of suffering? Well, is he saying you have to believe that I died for your sins, or you have to believe in my Father, the one and only God? No. He's saying you have right view, you have right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, mindfulness, and meditation. That's all he's saying. 8 things in the Noble Eightfold Path. Sila, moral virtue. Samadhi, meditation. Panya, wisdom. He's just saying that will end your suffering. This is nothing to be believed in. It's just something to be understood, practiced, tried, and succeeded at. The alternative, as described in the Bible, requires a little bit more imagination. And if you're of a faithful nature, that's okay. But also in the Bible, there are facts that you can stick to and adhere to, and I think you still go to heaven. So on that point, I should leave it there. Thank you for watching, listening, however you're doing it. And if there's something useful in there, I hope you can use it. But if not, please don't let it trouble you. Likewise, if it's useful, please share it with your friends, or even not your friends, whomever you feel you want to share it with, as many as possible. And till next time, may you be happy and stay well. I think all the animals have run away, with the exception of the termites. I'll get up very carefully so as not to squash any.